So our first cuts. So there are a number of ways that we can achieve this. I used to use this method because it's the only one I really knew. You can get a straight chisel, and you can place it along the line you want to cut and hit it with your mallet like that. And you can do that all along your lines, everywhere, which is not uncommon. People do that all the time. So we're not going to actually want to cut on that line because that line is not going to help us get what we need. So we're just going to remove that. Okay, so now we could do that, like I said, all along our lines. All along our lines. Or you could use another method, which I have developed. Let me see. So I found that, oh come on, this cutter, which is really not cheap, but if you're careful with it, it can last through quite a few carvings. So this cutter is a cutter that basically has a edge on it that I'm trying to get you a straighter cut, but I'll get you a better picture of that. This cutter is kind of what they use for drywall and such. So when they use those, when they use these, it has a cutting edge on all surfaces. So it has a cutting edge on the outer surface and also the top surface. So this allows me to cut through the wood in a straight path. In any path, really, you could use this to cut all day. The problem is that it catches in the wood, and it will catch and jump like a chainsaw would. So you have to be extremely careful. I don't use it for carving. I only use it to gouge out bulk material. So you can run with that, or you can make your own mistakes if you'd like as well. But at least from my experience, it's easier to just cut in and cut out. The machine will heat up quite a bit. You're going to have to cool it down by just turning it off and setting it aside. But for the most part, it works really well. And I'll do a couple different areas here to show you how that is. This is just a typical rotary tool. This one is by Black & Decker, but for the most part, I really don't care as long as it's quality enough to survive. What I usually do is I take the collet right off and toss it in the trash can, and I put on here a chuck, which is basically just a I don't have one sitting around, but it's basically just a open and close. So I just jam a pliers in here, hold it still, and then crack it open, and then just spin it, and it opens the chuck. So I can lift, I can replace as required, or change the bit as required. Usually once I get this bit in, I don't change it until this thing breaks, or until this breaks. But for the most part, it's a much easier way of managing accessories. So it's a little noisy, so be prepared for that. I'm just going to do a little bit to show you what it looks like. As you know, I use a blower to just blow it all away. I find that that's far easier. Of course, cleanup after the fact, it's everywhere. So that's problematic. But for the most part, it gets it off my workpiece, so I'm pretty happy with that. So you'll see here that this, I only cut about, I don't know, 3/16, maybe a quarter inch. So you can see that it's put in a fairly good groove. So, once you get used to the tool, you get pretty good at where it goes and manipulating that. And you can imagine what that's done so far. For the most part, it's only used for bulk. But for the most part, I just hacked out a huge line with very little effort. And so what I'll do is I'll go back and I'll do that everywhere along my black lines. And then I'll have a rough out of basically what I want from this carving. Don't worry about this and that, and I'll get to that in a minute. So let me go back and do all of that, and then I will come back with yet another video. Okay?